Hey again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder on Sunday, August 22nd, 2021. And I'm going to do a short video here on Owen Shroyer, who's now a P.O.W., and that he must demand a court martial. And hoping that somehow this gets to Owen and he'll understand it, talk about it online or on his show, or Alex Jones will. And the truth gets out there that what we see as courts, like all this shit happening in the District of Columbia, is not being done in a court that's under the has any authority under the Constitution of the United States. Right? We have been infiltrated by the United States of America, which is King George III's successor's jurisdiction, and it's under the control of esquires, which are agents of the crown. It's, what an esquire is. It's a crown agent. Well, in that system, British system, where you have esquires, there's an office lower than an esquire called a mister. And they always want you to be a mister, right? So I always tell people, don't let them call you mister, right? I mean, if we need to use a title, you can call me staff sergeant or you can call me sir, but you're not going to call me mister. Anyways, Owen, this is what's going on, right? Just more pieces of the pie that you don't necessarily know because, you didn't have this problem before, but maybe you'll pay attention now. So here's just a couple of things to keep in mind, right? That in the Department of Defense Law of War Manual, in Section 4.5, Armed Forces of a State, it says that members of an armed forces of a state, including members of all groups that are part of the armed forces of a state, but excluding certain medical and religious personnel, receive combatant status, by virtue of that membership. And in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it says, in Article 14, delivery of offenders to civil authorities, that under such regulations as the secretary concerned may prescribe, a member of the armed forces accused of an offense against a civil authority may be delivered upon request to the civil authority for trial. So the question is, Owen, although it's really not a question, the truth is, you're a member of the military, and you don't have to answer to the civil authorities unless the military says so. So where's the document that the civil authority went to the secretary to say, hey, we want to try Owen Shroyer in a civil, as the civil authority. Now, and these people are not the civil authority. They have not taken the oath to satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution, which I showed in many, many previous videos. You're just going to take my word for some of this stuff, right? But they haven't done it. So they're really not the government of the United States. They're just impersonating the government of the United States. And everything that they do is a simulated legal process of the laws of the United States, but that's the way it works. And, until we stop them, that's what they're going to do. And so we need to wake up the people that have the power and the authority to do something about this. So just so you know, I'm Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Merlewski, Army of the United States. I'm a United States Army veteran. You can call me Rob Ryder, and my email address is courtofrecord@aol.com, or my phone number, 616-712-6179. And let me see if I can enlighten you with a few things, and maybe you'll have questions and get a hold of me. So hang on just a second. So anyways, Owen, this is the complaint that's been filed against you, right? United States of America versus Jonathan with an O, Owen Shroyer, and a.k.a. Jonathan with an A, Owen Shroyer, date of birth, XXXXX. Well, that isn't you, right? You have a legal name, and you have a birth date, and neither of those are on there. Now, I'm not saying that one of those Jonathan Owen Shroyers isn't your legal name. I mean, what's on your driver's license? What's on your birth record? Right? That's what your legal name is unless you've changed it. I just say you don't have a middle name. You have maybe two parts of a first name. So your Jonathan Owen is your first name and Shroyer is your last name. But Owen is not your middle name. Because then you never have a middle initial, which is the other thing they'd like to do. They'd like to call you Jonathan O. Shroyer. Right? But the point is, this isn't really you because, you have a date of birth. It's not XXXXX. They're not talking about you. Yet they're going to want you to assume the role of Jonathan Owen Shroyer, a.k.a. Jonathan Owen Shroyer, DOB XXXXXX. If you want to, if you'll take that office, they're happy to give it to you. And the esquire that you're going to have, that's supposed to be your defense or helping to defend you, isn't going to challenge this shit. So anyways, it's just the start of what's on your complaint, right? But this is your complaint. Case number 121MJ, I think that's for magistrate judges, right? 572 ZMF. Right, so it's been assigned to this Judge Faraki Zia M, and I've seen his name on many of these cases going on in the District of Columbia. But so yours isn't any different than anybody else's that I've looked at in the past. I'm just going to look at yours now. By the way, right, there is no for the in the name of this court. If you go look at the name of the court, it's United States District Court, District of Columbia, not United States District Court for the District of Columbia. So they created a new court by putting for the in the name of the court. And that's the court that you're in, but it's not the court that's under the, that would have been created, if not under the Constitution, under the Judicial Act that came after the Constitution had been ratified. So, but I want to show you a few things first, right? Let's get some proofs out of the way. So give me a second to do that. And then we'll come back and look at your complaint. However, let's start with this. Let's just start with the form itself, right, which is an AO91 form. That's the criminal complaint that you were supposed to have been charged under, right? And so this is a blank one that you find online when you go look it up on the government's website. And you'll see here at the bottom, it has sworn to before me and signed in my presence, right? Date, city, state, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, well, let's go and look and see what they gave you. Right, yours doesn't say that. Yours is attested to by the applicant in accordance with some requirement. These are the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedures 4.1, which we'll get into in a little bit. But my point is, well, this isn't what's on the form, right? Somebody altered the damn form. There's the number, AO91, just like the one you can find online today. But somebody has altered the form. Well, that would be making this a counterfeit form. They counterfeited a federal form. And that's, that's how she rolls in the democracy. Which, there is no democracy in the Constitution. Right? The only form of government guaranteed in the Constitution is a Republican form. And to have a Republican form of government, people need to take the proper oath of office, and the system makes sure that nobody takes that oath, so we don't have a Republican form of government. And therefore, the democracy just acts and does as it pleases. Okay, so some of these proofs. So here's one of them. This is Title 10 of the United States Code. It's for the armed forces. All right, so you'd find it by looking up 10, right, 10, then USC, United States Code. And the Section 246 about the militia, where it says the militia of the United States consists of all able-bodied males at least 17 years of age, blah, 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 and under 45 years of age, right? Except for the ones who are in the National Guard, basically. Who have been made a declaration of intention to become citizens of the United States, and a female citizen of the United States who are members of the National Guard. So if you consider yourself a citizen of the United States, which is the term that's used in the Constitution, the Constitution is for citizens of the United States, then you would see that according to the federal government, you're in the militia of the United States. And technically, the United States is the state, right? The United States is a nation state. And all the things we call states are really republics, which isn't the same as a state. It's a republic. Right? All these words have meanings. But the United States is a state. Right? It's a nation state. So there you go, right? You are in the militia. So nobody can say you're not in the military. Well, sure I am. It's in the Title 10, United States Code, Section 246. What about that, attorney? Ask your attorney. What about this? Doesn't this put me into the military? Let's see what he has to say. Now, another thing is General Order 100, which is also called the Lieber Code, which was the instructions for the government of armies of the United States in the field. Put into action in 1863, right? After Lincoln had declared martial law in 1861 over the United States, right? It got ratified in 1863, and this Lieber Code was issued in 1863. And it says right in it, in the second article, that martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation, ordered by the commander-in-chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war. Well, neither of those things have ever happened since the Civil War. There was no Treaty of Peace, and there's been no special proclamation. And, you could go further. It's just not the Civil War, right? World War I was the same way. They acted like they were going to have a peace treaty, but it never got ratified, so there's no peace treaty. And if you look at the name of the entity they went to war with, that's not the name on the peace treaty. So all this shit means something if you decide to make it mean something. But if you're going to let it slide, well, then, you're giving up the truth, which is your only weapon to use in your defense. So the truth is, the United States is under martial law, right? So the constitutional government has been suspended. And the proof of that is that there's nobody who's taken an oath to satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution. Right, which says in the 6th article that the senators, representatives before mentioned, and members of the several state legislatures and all executive, all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall be required as a qualification of any office of public trust under the United States. Now, that's what the Constitution says. Well, as soon as the Constitution is ratified, the new Congress got busy starting to pass laws, and the very first law they passed is this law called, I call it 1 Stat 23, but actually, its true name is an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths, which was, written into the law on June 1st, 1789 by President George Washington, in which it says that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the following form, to wit, I state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm I will support the Constitution of the United States. So I, Robert Allen Wertlewski, full legal name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Period. That's the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. Nothing else. That, right? It's the very first law written. It's a statute at large, 1 Stat 23, the very first statute at large, and all statutes at large are considered the laws of the United States. Right? You can find that in 1 USC 112, 112. So, this is how you tell if somebody is actually an officer of the United States. So in your case, there's an FBI guy who says he was a special agent. Okay, well, let me see your oath of office. You're claiming to hold an office in the government of the United States, and you have to have taken this oath. Because this applies not just to, the federal government, it applies down to the state also. The governor, all the judges, the mayor, anybody who's going to claim a government office under the United States has to have taken this oath. And if they're claiming a government office in the territory of the United States and claiming it not to be part of the United States, well, then it's a fucking foreign government. And you don't have to answer to it. So just to show you, though, because this does apply to state officers also, soon after, well, I won't say soon after, but sometime after, when they wrote the United States Code, they actually took the part out about for the state offices, and they put it in United States Code. So this is Title 4 now, United States Code, Section 101, where it says, oath by members of legislature and officers. Every member of a state legislature and every executive and judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute duties of his office, take an oath the following form. To wit, I state your name, you solemnly swear I'll support the Constitution of the United States. Period. It doesn't matter that the state says, no, we're going to have you take a different oath. That'd be fine. Go ahead, take it. But you have to take this one too. And they're not taking it. And in fact, the oath they take, or they say, well, this is the oath they took, like to satisfy your state constitution, it's fucked up. they use a middle initial name, or they don't use exactly the wording as you find it in your Constitution, or some other deviation, because the devil's in the details, and they just put it, forget a jot or tittle in the details, and, well, you just made it illegal. So this, I'm just trying to show you some of the things that's going on that we're dealing with. Hang on. Okay, Treaty of Peace of 1783, right? Signed at Paris, September 3, 1783. Ratified. It's in the statutes at large, so it's the law. And then it says in the very first paragraph that in the name of the most holy and undivided Trinity, it having pleased the divine providence to dispose the hearts of the most serene and most potent King George III, by grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, Duke of Brunswick and Lunenburg, Arch-Treasurer and Prince-Elector of the Holy Roman Empire, and CA, and of the United States of America. He's claiming that he owns the United States of America. And you can go through here and see where they talk about the differences, right? Because here's the United States. Go a little bit further, you got United States of America again, and United States of America again, then you got United States over here, United States over here. So they're definitely showing that there's these two different jurisdictions, right? That the United States is viz. These right here, with New York with a hyphen, New Jersey with a hyphen. Don't have a hyphen, it's not the United States. Right? But these, it doesn't say this is the United States of America, it said these are the United States. And yet you'll hear them always talking about the United States of America. Well, that's the thing they call the democracy. Crazy, isn't it? Okay, on, so you're going to be in a courtroom, and there's probably going to be a flag in there, and it's more than likely going to have gold fringe. Although I have seen occasions where there's a flag in there with no gold fringe, and I found an occasion when I saw a picture where there's no flag at all in a courtroom. But by and large, there's almost always a gold fringe flag in a courtroom. And, you start looking around at township hall meetings or county meetings or whatever, they all have gold fringe flags. Well, that flag comes out of this manual, or this Army regulation, AR 840-10. Which, says what it says, and you can agree with the Army or disagree. But first of all, unauthorized use of official flags, guide irons, and streamers. There is no law that permits the sale, loan, or donation of flags, guide irons, or streamers to individuals or organizations not in military service, except as indicated in 1 and 2. So if they have a flag, they're supposed to be in the military service, except for 1 or 2. And 1 is educational institutions, and number 2 is retired generals. Other than that, if they have a flag, whether it's got gold fringe or not, right, they're not in military service, or then they would have to be in military service. Right? If they're in military service, because here's the thing, the military can have different levels of courts. They're not all court-martial courts. And you would need to ask for a court-martial court. And the reason to do that is in a court-martial court, they make people swear to their their claim. And the court you're going into now, no one's going to swear to these charges against you. But in a court-martial, they have to. Okay, and I just want to show you real quick. You go to Chapter 2, right? Flag of the United States, which is the only one that matters for our purposes. And you go down here to that the national flag listed below are for indoor display and for use in ceremonies and parades. For the purpose of the flag, the United States will be a rayon band or cloth, heavy white nylon, trimmed on 3 sides with a gold yellow fringe, 2 1/2 inches wide. And it goes on to say where they can be displayed. Right? And authorization for indoor display. The flag of the United States is authorized for indoor display for each, and then it's going to list them, which means if they're not listed here, then it would be unauthorized for that flag to be displayed. So somebody's doing it, they're violating the Army regulation. Right here, military courtrooms. Doesn't say anything about a civilian courtroom, but in a military courtroom, you can have a gold fringe flag. And by and large, you go into a courtroom, they have gold fringe flags in them. So, there you are. And then there's only, we should go look at that real quick. Let me buzz on down here. I don't remember where it was. 8, I think. Yeah, where it talks about the fennels, right? There's only 4 kinds of fennels. You got a spearhead, an acorn, a ball, and then an eagle. Right? And the eagle is for presidential. So if you got, and this is the one you'll see in courtrooms, although it doesn't look like this eagle. When I first saying this, the way the eagles needs to look, well, that's not the eagle they're using. But there is a bird on the top of it, and that would make it presidential. So why would the president's flag be on a court that's supposed to be under the jurisdiction of the judiciary, which is a separate branch of government? Well, simply because we're not in the judiciary as a separate branch of government. It's all part of the frickin' the president as the commander-in-chief. Okay, so let's really take a quick look at your at the complaint. United States of America versus some John Doe. And then, as I said, they had changed this part right here, right, where it's attested to by the applicant in accordance with these requirements under the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure 4.1. Now, there's some little seal back here that you can't see, but I found it on another one. Right, and it says U.S. District Court, District and Bankruptcy Courts, District of Columbia. But that isn't the name of the court that's at the top of your freaking complaint. It's United States District Court, District of Columbia, or for the District of Columbia. So if that's the name, that should be the name on the seal. But instead, they're using this, U.S. District and Bankruptcy Courts, District of Columbia. Which, is interesting because it's, the bankruptcy court, bankruptcies are supposed to be adjudicated in the district court. They're really not supposed to be a separate court. But I do know this, that in charging you, they're charging you under more than one name or in more than one case even. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But back to your complaint. Right? So they added this. I mean, they changed what it should have said, which is sworn to before me and signed in my presence. Just took that right. This is an official form, United States. We'll just go ahead and get rid of that, because it's inconvenient for us, and we'll replace it with, with what works best for us, which is this attested to by the applicant in accordance with the requirements of Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure 4.1. Let's go read that rule, see what it has to say. So you could go find it online and, look at it there, but I put it into this Word document here where it says that rule, 4.1, is for complaint, warrant, summons by telephone or other reliable electronic means, in which it says, in general, a magistrate judge may consider information communicated by telephone or other reliable electronic means when reviewing a complaint or deciding whether to issue a warrant or summons. If a magistrate judge decides to proceed under this rule, the following procedures apply. So, the magistrate judge made a decision to do it by these rules. And number 1, taking testimony under oath. The judge must place under oath and may examine the applicant and any person on whose testimony the application is based. And then 2, creating a record of testimony. If the applicant does no more than attest to the contents of a written affidavit submitted by reliable electronic means, the judge must acknowledge the attestation in writing on the affidavit. So that's saying that the complainant must attest to his affidavit, and the attestation done by the complainant must be acknowledged by the judge. Right? So the judge isn't doing the attestation. The frickin' the guy's, the complainant is. Well, none of that happened. See, this is what's going on, Owen, that nobody is filing. Hang on here. There's no affidavit in your court case, right? Here's the complaint, allegedly, and then here comes a statement of facts. But it's not a sworn statement of facts, and it's not an affidavit, although the guy says you're affiant, which, that would be him, Clark Burns. But if he's an affiant, then when you get to the end of this thing, right, there should be where he swore to it before somebody. But he just attested to it. Attested to by applicant in accordance with requirements under, well, there's nowhere on here where it says he attested to it. And it's not a sworn, it's not an affidavit. Let me show you something real quick. So here's an example of a sworn statement form. This is one used by the Army, right? Army sworn statement form. And you put your information, you put I, put your name in, want to make the following statement under oath, yada, yada, blah, 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 keep on going. Eventually, when you get done talking, then you're going to do an affidavit that I, put your name in again, have read or have had read to me this statement, which begins on that page, and so forth and so on, and yada, yada, yada. It's got to be, you got to sign it. It has to be signed by the person administering an oath. All that stuff. Well, that isn't what this guy put in. This is testimony here. That's what this is. But all this guy put in is hearsay. All right, it's strictly hearsay. I wasn't sworn to. So the guy attested to hearsay. He didn't attest to his testimony. He just attested to a page with the statements of facts, but not necessarily testimony or evidence. Now, I find it interesting as you read this thing, because I've looked at a number of these now, and I'm starting to realize that they're using the same paragraphs. Like here, it's the U.S. U.S. capital, but down here, it's the United States capital. The next paragraph down. In the United States capital, it has an address, 1st Street Southeast in Washington, D.C., so you would say, well, that's where everybody was at, because that's the place they're at. But the U.S. Capitol, it doesn't have any address on it, and it says that it's secured 24 hours a day by the U.S. Capitol Police. So if, Owen broke a law, how come they're not the ones filing the complaint? Why is it the FBI? Apparently the U.S. Capitol Police didn't think he did anything wrong because they didn't file the complaint. And, United States Congress, United States Capitol, so they're making this distinction. But and here's the interesting thing. See, this isn't the first time that Jonathan, with an O, Owen Shroyer, has been in trouble in the District of Columbia. He was charged by an information in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. There's the case number. In violation of some D.C. codes, right? He was tried in a state court. Right, for obstructing and impeding passage of the United States Capitol grounds based on Shroyer's disruption of the House Judiciary meeting. Basically, he stood up and started yelling. But when he did that, which was in the Capitol, it wasn't the FBI that filed the complaint. He didn't go to a federal court. He went to the District of Columbia court. Well, how come that isn't what's happening now? What changed? Right? If the Capitol Police are in charge of the freaking Capitol, and they're not the ones complaining that you broke any laws, then how could you have broken any laws? Right? Because they're in charge of the United States Capitol grounds. So, and then when you look at these things, they have these pictures in here. Where's that picture at? There's Owen. He's just standing there. It's like, okay, that's all it takes to go to jail? Be standing next to Alex Jones? Right? There he is again. So, I obviously don't have time to read this whole thing. I'm just saying that, first of all, the guy that is acting as this special agent, Or he didn't swear to his complaint. So there isn't any complaint. And the seal that they're using on these documents, right, that is not a court of the United States. Right? It's, where is that court in the Constitution? It doesn't exist. I wanted to show, right, here's another one, the same type of thing, where you got another guy, Christopher John Worrell, where now the date of birth, XXX, right? There's no date of birth. You say, well, that's not me. You don't have I have a date of birth. My date of birth isn't XXXXXX. Now, I know why they're doing that, and this goes into some of the other videos I did that, they give us this document they call a birth certificate when they hand it to you, but when you read it, it says at the top it's a certificate of live birth. And if you do a little research on what a certificate of live birth is in your state, by looking at your state's Vital Records Act, you're going to find out that it's used for like adoptions or stillbirths or out of wedlock births. Right? So why do they give that to everybody? Are they saying that everybody was adopted? Because everybody gets the same document. It's called a certificate of live birth. I've looked at a lot of people's documents. They all say the same thing. Certificate of live birth. Now, there are a few. I mean, I've seen certified copies of records of birth and similar things to do with a record of birth. But when they talk about a certificate of live birth, which most people get, that's the document that, when you go read the law, what it's used for. Is for adoptions and out of wedlock. And then when you read the damn thing, it's got all sorts of errors in it. And this is just the way the system works. It's just chock full of errors and nobody ever complains. Here's an error, right? They changed the fucking form. This is a form made by the federal government. AO 91 form. Right? Somebody altered the form. That's called counterfeiting. So it would be the same thing in this case. These people are putting in statements of facts, not putting in any testimony whatsoever. It's just statements of fact. Right? Again, you're a Fenian, but you can look through this thing and there is no Fenian. Here we go again, U.S. Capitol, right? In this paragraph, and down here, it's United States Capitol, and it's the thing with the address. Well, then the U.S. Capitol is different than the United States Capitol because the U.S. Capitol doesn't have an address. I'm not the one making the distinction. They did. Arrest warrant, yada, 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 an indictment. And some of these guys, they get indictments. And on an indictment, they're supposed to be endorsed true bill, not a true bill. It should be endorsed true bill. And then it should have been signed by the foreperson. But it wasn't. It wasn't signed by anybody. Right? So this is not a indictment. It's a document that is counterfeiting in an indictment. And all this shit is being done by esquires, right, who are really crown agents who have taken over our court system. And they're the prosecutor, the defense lawyer, and they're the judge. What do you think your chances are in a closed system like that? Right? And then these things are signed by attorney of the United States in and for District of Columbia. There is no such office. Right? All these offices have proper names, and they're not using the names. So, anyway, Owen, that's the kind of stuff you're dealing with. One other thing real quick. This is off of Pacer, right? If you go on to Pacer, Owen, you can look your case up, and if you put your name in, you'll end up on a page like this. Where all I did is I put in Shroyer. It's the only name I put in, and this is the District of Columbia's United States District Court, District of Columbia. So it shows that there's 3 different people, right? With Jonathan with an A and Jonathan with an O, and then just Owen Shroyer. Well, only one of those could be your legal name because none of them are the same, right? So only one's your legal name. And if you're going to court, you're supposed to be tried in your legal name. If they're not trying you in your legal name, then they're not talking about you, right? They're trying to get you to be a John Doe. They're trying to get you to agree through coercion to take somebody else's personality. But when you go further into these then, the one that was just Owen Shroyer. That had to do with something to do with coerce. I remember that. I guess he got himself in some trouble. Never know what happened there. But then Jonathan with an A. Well, he's got two different court cases against him: USA versus Shroyer, and Jonathan with an O, Owen Shroyer. But this is Jonathan with an A. Yet there's two different court cases. Well, how can you be, going to two different court cases? When you see just a name like this is more like being a bankruptcy court, which makes it really interesting that that's what's on these people's, on that seal they're showing. Right? Because it's not USA versus, it's more like RE Jonathan Owen Shroyer. Right? But, that's with an A. And then you go down with an O, and Jonathan with an O, he's got two cases against him. So, somebody's being tried twice for the same crimes under different names. I thought that would like double jeopardy or some crap. We don't have there's no attorneys appointed yet or so forth and so on. But when they do start appointing attorneys and stuff, you'll see that, when they fill out paperwork, they never use their full legal name. The judge isn't using his full legal name. Right? U.S. Bankruptcy Court. Let's back up now. Who is this? Right? Zia M. Faruqi. There is nobody, no person, no full legal name, Zia M. Faruqi in the United States. Right? People don't have initials in their legal name. As I pointed out again and again and again. Right? Here's one for G. Michael Harvey. Right? His first name isn't G. It's an initial. It's all fucked up. Right? They're altering the forms. They're acting like they're doing it under some federal rule that allows the attestation of an affidavit. But they're not filing an affidavit. They're just filing a statement of facts. Just a bunch of shit on paper. Right? Fact actor. All these are facts. All this shit is a fact. But none of it is testimony because it wasn't sworn to. Right? It wasn't done. Right? That's what this is. I mean, if this was done properly, this would be testimony. So, one other thing. Your Sixth Amendment rights. Right? This is so. This is why you need to ask for a court martial. Because in a court martial, they have to protect your due process. Right? Because, the Army has a duty to uphold and defend the Constitution. Well, the Constitution says in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right of speedy public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusations, to be confronted with by witnesses against him, and to have compulsory process in obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have assistance of counsel for his defense. Not to have an attorney, to have counsel. Right? They're going to assign you an attorney, and you're going to sign a piece of paper or whatever it is they're going to do, and you're going to give that attorney power of attorney. Now, he can sign for you. But that's nothing like having counsel for your defense to say, well, Owen, what you need to do, or what we need to do is point out to the judge that the complainant didn't swear to his complaint. Let's just go to the beginning. Right? How come we have to think of all these other things to do other than the first thing? Which is to simply say, well, they didn't swear to their complaint. Right? Clark Burns didn't swear to his complaint. This is not an affidavit. It's not a sworn statement. It's just a statement of facts. And if your attorney can't do something with that, then you should know you got a problem. So I don't know what else to show you, Owen. I mean, there's, you're probably not going to see this for your asses in jail anyways. But just so you know, you're being tried as a John Doe with no date of birth. And the rest of it we'll just have to save for some other time. So if you do happen to watch it, have been watching, All right. Court of record at AOL.com or 616-712-6179. And, if you tell me exactly what your question is, I can go try to find you an answer. But that's a generality. So, okay. Have a good day.